because people such as yourself, and there are multiple different websites that like to share propaganda about this issue.
What's hilarious to me is that Bronte says because people such as yourself, and there are multiple different websites that like to share propaganda about this issue, while holding a picture of propaganda.
First of all, are you aware, when we can talk about different numbers, but are you aware of the time in which 80% of abortions take place? Like the state of gestation?
Yeah, it's relatively early, first trimester.
Okay, do you know the week, perhaps?
I don't know.
Okay, so 80% of abortions occur before week 9, and you say that their babies are kicking and reacting.
Yeah.
Are you aware of what a 9-week-old fetus looks like?
Oh, yes, very well.
Yes, can you describe it to me?
Yeah. Well, really, I suppose by the 10th week. That's especially when you go in and you have your babies, you go in for an 8-week appointment. By the 8-week appointment, they can tell you the sex of your baby, which is amazing. That's how well formed they are already. By the 10-week appointment, they've got basically all of their features formed in a very rudimentary way, but they're already quite formed, and you can look, and they no longer look like a little tadpole entirely. They look much more like a human being.
Oh, really?
Oh, such condescension, Bronte. Let's look at what Michael is saying to see if there's any photos of 8-week and 10-week babies. At 8 weeks pregnant, your baby will measure about ½ inch from the top of its head to its little tail. At an 8-week scan, it's possible to see the embryo's development, especially their big head and small body. Your little one will also start to make involuntary movements like a slight flicker or a jump. At 10 weeks, the baby is now about the size of a prune. You should be able to see an upper lip and 2 tiny nostrils on the nose. The ears are starting to develop on the sides of your baby's head, and the ear canals are forming inside the head. Baby's mouth will now contain all future milk teeth as the jawbone is developing. Okay, so Michael is fairly accurate on his descriptions. If you can see the small body at 8 weeks, then it is plausible you can tell the sex of the baby if you look for it. At 10 weeks, Michael says they've got basically all of their features formed in a very rudimentary way, but they're already quite formed, which does seem like an accurate description of mouth, nose, and ears forming. I didn't really doubt Michael since he has 2 kids and has seen sonograms. I am showing these for informational purposes and to verify what he says, even if I know he's probably telling the truth.
And they've got their little fingers already and their little toes. Yeah, the tail's almost gone.
I actually have pictures for you.
Right.
So this is 9 weeks. This is what a 9-week fetus looks like.
Well, let me see.
I would like to, if you want to look at that, and you would like to look at that, you can look at this.
Oh, great. Yeah.
And I know that you...
It's not like any ultrasound I've ever looked at, though.
Yeah, I know. That's why I brought them.
Yeah.
Because when
this isn't an ultrasound?
No, this is a 9-week fetus in a Petri dish.
In a Petri dish? Mm-hmm. Why do you have the thing in the Petri dish?
To discount misinformation that is spread about this issue.
Babies in Petri dishes? That's horrendous. Babies are not lab rats. They shouldn't be in Petri dishes. It's funny that Bronte would talk about misinformation because a baby in a Petri dish is probably dead, right? I don't imagine that a grown baby could fit in a Petri dish. Here's a living 9-week fetus. Who's spreading misinformation, Bronte? I guess you didn't say that the baby was alive, so maybe you think that will help your accusation of misinformation, but using deception doesn't make me believe you at all.
But
just like you do.
How did the baby get into the Petri dish?
I believe these are aborted. And so this...
Oh, look at that. I was right. The baby is dead. Shame on you, Bronte.
So you're saying that a baby that has been sucked out and dismembered looks a little bit different.
They aren't dismembered because there isn't enough of them.
How are they aborted?
The fetus is barely recognizable to the naked eye at 9 weeks.
Michael says, so you're saying that a baby that has been sucked out and dismembered looks a little bit different. Bronte claims that they aren't dismembered because there isn't enough of them. Remember the picture of the 9-week live fetus that I found? Here's the description. Your baby is about the size of a grape, so 0.9 inches. Your baby has all the essential body parts, including elbows and knees. On your baby's face, the upper lip, nose, and eyelids have formed, and your baby's tiny toes are visible. Bronte's argument that there isn't enough of them falls apart here because, although only the size of a grape, elbows and knees are the joints that connect the top half of your arms and legs to the bottom of your arms and legs. Dismemberment is when you separate someone's limbs from their body. If you have elbows and knees, you have arms and legs. If you have arms and legs, you can be dismembered. Now it's my turn to own Bronte.
How is that baby aborted?
So at 9 weeks, it's usually just a pill that expels the fetus.
What does the pill, all the pill does is expel the baby?
Yeah, it basically makes the uterine lining not able to, or the fetus not able to adhere to the uterine lining, and it sheds it. There's various mechanisms.
So what are some of the other mechanisms?
Well, it depends on the week of gestation.
Let's say around 10 weeks we're talking about.
So I think after 10 weeks what they will do is it's no longer going to be a pill. They essentially inject like saline solution, and they inject, and it removes it from the uterine lining.
So it's basically a poison.
No, it's flushing. It's cleaning out the uterus.
But it's I'm not saying it's cyanide or something like that, but you're injecting a chemical into the uterus.
Bronte says it's not a poison because it's saline solution. Michael is saying that if something is introduced into the uterus that doesn't need to be there during pregnancy, that is introducing an unnatural chemical into the environment. It's like if I said, well, I turned on the gas in the house and unplugged the stove, but I didn't poison you with carbon monoxide because I didn't force you to breathe the carbon monoxide. I just introduced the carbon monoxide into the house. The environment now has an unnatural chemical that has been introduced into it, which will harm the person in the environment.
Usually like saline solution.
Right, but if I put saline solution on a slug, it'll shrivel up and die.
Yeah, are you a slug? Do humans react the same way to saline solution as slugs do?
Yes, little babies do. Actually.
No, it just
that's why you're
disconnects
using it to kill. Right,
no, so
right,
this
to
the
dissolve
reason
the connection between the baby and the placenta and the mother, and to flush out the poor little baby. So this is why I think it's really ghastly and disingenuous of you to
No,
show those photos,
I'm bringing this because you consistently want to anthropomorphize this issue.
You described the baby as anthropomorphic. You described the baby as a human. You did. You said it's a human being.
It is a human being.
But you're accusing me of anthropomorphizing a human being?
This is a 9-week-old fetus.
I just find it hilarious when Michael says, but you're accusing me of anthropomorphizing a human being? Because Bronte is just being ridiculous at this point. Also, Michael owned her again.
This is a 9-week-old fetus, and I bring this to try to address misinformation about, if you would please allow me to
Sure,
finish.
it's just really ghastly to show a picture of a person who's been killed.
And I apologize for that. But
Your apology implies that you'll correct your behavior. But
No.
You're not doing that.
Bronte says, I apologize for that, but... This is the reason why no one should ever apologize to leftists. An apology that includes the word but in the same sentence implies that you're contradicting what you just apologized for. Michael says your apology implies that you'll correct your behavior, and Bronte says no. If someone is demanding an apology from you, but they don't even believe in apologies, why the hell should you do anything they say? The answer is you shouldn't. Michael then points out, but you're not doing that. Michael owns Bronte again.
Because people such as yourself, and there are multiple different websites that like to share propaganda about this issue. And I am here to try to present a medically accurate representation
of what a
this
murder
issue,
victim looks
of what this issue is. And when you try to act as though it is murder, I want your audience to truly...
What's hilarious to me is that Bronte says, because people such as yourself, and there are multiple different websites that like to share propaganda about this issue, and I am here to try to present a medically accurate representation while holding a picture of propaganda. As I've shown you what a living 9-week fetus looks like, Bronte is calling that ultrasound picture propaganda.
Truly understand what we are talking about, because I am not saying that a woman with a desired pregnancy shouldn't feel connected to her fetus. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying when we have a person with an unwanted pregnancy, you cannot act as though their choice to decide what is best for their life and their body is murder, when in reality it is a living person standing in front of you who's a living, breathing person with dreams and aspirations, who is a mother, sister, daughter.
Yeah, was a mother.
No, 59% of people who get abortions are mothers with existing children. And so I just want you...
All of them have existing children. They all do. I mean, Bronte, what's so confusing about this to me, and what's very silly, I think, about showing pictures of aborted babies, is it would be as though if you were to ask me to show you a picture of, what does an Italian guy in New York look like? Okay, and I showed you a picture of a young 25-year-old Italian guy splayed out on the street, chopped up, bleeding, dead. Versus, an Italian boy, eating a bowl of spaghetti or something like that. Those two pictures would look very, very different. And so what the trick, the deception that you've engaged in, is you've taken a baby who has been killed through abortion and been separated from his mother and splayed out and squeezed out and looks unrecognizable, and you're pretending what you're pretending is that cadaver is what a baby who has not been killed by his mother, who is still in the womb and who is growing and who is exhibiting all the signs of life and who is moving and who has little fingernails, even at a small level.
No, this was expelled. It was not dismembered. If you look at this, primarily most of the tissue here is the gestational sac, because the beginnings of pregnancy, the gestational sac and the placenta are some of the first things created, because that is what attaches to the uterine lining and provides the fetus with resources and expels its waste. That is primarily in the first few weeks of pregnancy. Those are the tissue contents that are created before the fetus is really developed. In a 9-week-old fetus, like I have here, the fetus itself is hardly distinguishable to the human eye.
Oh, Bronte, the baby is the size of a grape at 9 weeks. Can you see a grape, Bronte? If you cannot see a grape, you may want to get your vision checked. So Bronte now says, if you look at this, primarily most of the tissue here is the gestational sac. So she admits her propaganda picture was actually a picture of the remains of a gestational sac and a dead baby.
Because it's so small.
Because it's so small.
Yeah,
and so
right.
That is why I bring it up.
Because so hold on. Then because when you present this, you say, well, actually, this mostly isn't the fetus. This mostly is all this other stuff. Okay. But then you're not showing me what a fetus looks like. Then you're just
the fetus is in this picture.
Right, but just very small.
That is how.
So how much of that picture is the fetus?
It is indistinguishable to the human eye.
Oh, so now all you're saying is the fetus at that stage. It's not that the fetus, looks like all this tissue actually isn't really the fetus, because you can't even see the fetus. It's
exactly.
in there, but you can't really see it. So now what you're admitting is you're not showing people a picture of a fetus. You're showing people a picture of a gestational sac that's been expelled with a tiny fetus. If you wanted to show people what a fetus looks like at the age of 10 weeks in gestation, you would show them the fetus itself, and you would have to zoom in because it's a very tiny little guy.
You would have to use a microscope
we have
in order to see it.
This is the year of our Lord 2022. We have plenty of medical technologies which are being put to great evil, but we can also put them to good use and show what the baby looks like. And it is simply a fact, at 10 weeks, the baby looks like a baby and has little fingernails and little toes and all his little extremities.
Do you see the baby in this photo?
I don't have a...
No, of course you can't see the baby in the photo, but that doesn't make you win the argument, Bronte. The baby is the size of a grape. If you pummel a grape and explode the grape, and then you put some other shit around the exploded grape, of course you wouldn't be able to see anything distinguishable, because it's all just an exploded mess. So the only thing you're proving, Bronte, is that the baby has been taken apart. And of course you can't see it, because it's not only small, but it has been exploded into pieces.
I don't have a microscope.
Exactly, and that's what I'm telling you. And that's what I'm telling you.
That I need a microscope? So bring me a microscope.
So when we talk about abortion, 80% of abortions, this is the contents. And so when we talk about, can I please
Bronte,
Michael, I allowed you to finish, and I would.
Well, I appreciate you allowing me that, but I guess I don't want to move past this point. Your argument now is not that the baby looks in a way that you wouldn't expect the baby to look. Your argument is simply that abortion is permissible at this stage because the baby is very, very small and you can't see him in my photograph.
No, I am saying that abortion is permissible because it is about the use of the person's body who is pregnant. And I bring these photos because there is so much misinformation put out about this issue.
What is
and
the
like
misinformation?
like you like to say, oh, they react when you eat something spicy. They have little fingers and toes. When in reality, the fetus at 9 weeks, where 80% of abortions occur, is hardly distinguishable to the human eye. So to say that a living person sitting in front of you with dreams and aspirations and health situations and financial situations, mental situations that you cannot possibly understand, when they are sitting in front of you telling you that they do not consent, whether it be because they cannot or will not, endure a pregnancy, you are saying that the tissue within their uterus, which is primarily just a gestational sac and a microscopic fetus, that is worth more than their desires about their own body. And when misinformation is spread about this issue, it is as if these babies are dismembered and is this very emotional and manipulative language used, when in reality, that is not what happens.
They've only been poisoned with a pill and flushed out.
They haven't been poisoned. They've made the uterus uninhabitable, so then it is expelled.
Yeah, that sounds like poison to me. But to the point you're making here, Bronte, is you're saying it's misinformation when I say that a baby at 10 weeks in gestation has little fingers and toes. You're saying that's misinformation?
I'm saying that it's not distinguishable, and it is not.
Hold on, no, I'm not asking about
the human eye.
Bronte says it just makes the uterus uninhabitable. Uninhabitable. Michael says, yeah, that sounds like poison to me. The baby's environment is inside the uterus, and so if you make the uterus uninhabitable, you are making the baby's environment uninhabitable. If I make your living environment uninhabitable through some toxin, am I not poisoning your environment? Bronte then doesn't deny anymore that the baby doesn't have fingers and toes. Now she's saying because the fingers and toes are so small, it doesn't matter that they have them.
Hold on, no, I'm not asking about
the human eye.
I can't see your toes with my human eye. Do you have them? Do you have them?
I do have toes, yes.
You do, but I can't see them with the human eye.
Because I have shoes on, Michael. But if I took my shoes off, they are distinguishable to the human eye.
Now, what if you were 5 miles away and I couldn't see your toes 5 miles away because with my human eye?
Is this picture 5 miles away from you, Michael? No, it is not. What I am saying is you can't see my toes because they're within my shoe.
But
you can't see a fetus because it is inside of a person. When it is removed from that person, you still cannot see the fetus, whether you are 5 miles away or 5 inches away.
Bronte,
and you trying to use emotionally manipulative language to reach your audience and try to get them to vote to ban abortion against the opinion of medical experts. That is why I bring these photos, because there are hardly any medically accurate photos representing this issue, and instead it is primarily illustrations and propaganda that is pushed to manipulate people into removing the bodily autonomy from their fellow citizens, when in reality these fetuses are hardly distinguishable to the human eye, and we should instead look at the person that I can see in front of me and respect their right to decide what is best.
Michael asks Bronte if she has toes because he can't see them with his human eye, and she has no choice but to answer yes. Michael owns Bronte. The baby is within the mother's stomach, but it still exists, just like your toes within your shoe exist. Trying to argue that something doesn't exist because it is small insults every person who is smaller than average. Trying to argue that something doesn't exist because it is inside something else insults all turtles who have ever hidden inside their shells.
What is best for she is a living, breathing person with desires.
You already said that the baby is living.
It's not breathing.
Bronte says it's not breathing. According to that, every person who has passed out is fair game for unimportance. This is ridiculous. I looked up how a baby gets oxygen when it's still inside its mother, just so we can learn some scientific facts. Although babies do practice breathing movements in the womb to train their muscles, they don't actually breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide like you do. Instead, oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange happen via the umbilical cord and placenta. The fact is, babies still need oxygen to grow, which is delivered through the umbilical cord.
It is not autonomous.
So if the pregnant mother is intubated, then we can kill her? Because she's not breathing.
So that's actually a good question. So if we have someone who's on life support, what are they connected to?
tubes and breathing machines?
To a machine, right. And a fetus is connected to a human. So when you use this analogy, there's two options. Either you didn't think your analogy through very well, or you think that living people are equivalent to inanimate objects and machines. And so if that pregnant person who is intubated and connected to a machine, if instead they needed to be connected to a living person in order to survive, our current laws and medical ethics would never allow you to force someone to connect themselves to that person to keep them alive.
Bronte answers Michael's question of if the pregnant mother is intubated, then we can kill her, with another question, which is essentially not an answer. Michael owns Bronte because she knows you can't kill a person just because they're intubated. Bronte evades Michael by asking him, if we have someone who's on life support, what are they connected to? Bronte is deflecting by accusing of Michael of thinking a woman is the same thing as a life support machine. It's comical to me that she continues to pretend like she gives a damn about humanity at this point. All Michael was asking was if we could kill someone just because they were intubated. He wasn't trying to make an analogy between pregnant women and life support machines. Bronte turns his question into an analogy of her own and then accuses him of making her analogy. This is a common leftist tactic where they'll do something, then accuse you of what they did. I'm not falling for that, Bronte.
Unless we're talking about the unique case of motherhood. I mention it because you said that in order for a person to have a right to life, he needs to be breathing, but that's obviously ridiculous. And then the other point here you've mentioned is that that because I can't see a fetus at 9 weeks gestation with the naked eye, that he isn't real or doesn't exist or doesn't have a right to life or something like that. But I wonder how you apply this principle. Are you saying that the existence or inexistence of a thing is dependent upon whether or not you can see it with your naked eye?
I am saying that even if you give a fetus all of the rights of a born, living, breathing person, they still cannot use someone's body to survive without their consent.
Michael says, as I did earlier, that arguing for the importance of something based on whether it's breathing or whether it can be seen with the naked eye are both ridiculous arguments, and he's right. Michael owns Bronte. Once again, Bronte evades Michael by bringing up consent and rights instead of answering Michael about whether she thinks the importance of a thing is based on its ability to breathe or be seen. When Bronte says, I am saying that even if you give a fetus all of the rights of a born, living, breathing person, they still cannot use someone's body to survive without their consent. Since pregnancy is unique and the baby has to be inside the mother's body, it sounds like Bronte doesn't want pregnancy to work the way that it does.
That's a good thing to discuss, and I want to get to that. But I don't think we can move past this naked eye thing, which just seems to me so preposterous. You're saying because I can't see someone with a naked eye that that person doesn't exist?
I'm saying that someone that I can see and speak to standing in front of me cannot use my body against my will, and neither can someone that I cannot even distinguish without a microscope. They cannot use my body against my will.
Why not? I mean, they can. Obviously they can. That's what children do. I mean, usually it's with your will because because people generally consent to have sex and children. But even if that were not the case, you just accidentally become pregnant or something like that. It is simply a fact that your child can and does use your body, even if it is against your will. So of course that can happen because we're talking about the unique case of motherhood.
Right, and so you are arguing that in no other case can someone use someone else's body against their will, unless we're talking about motherhood. Right,
motherhood
so you only think that we should remove bodily autonomy from people with uteruses.
By this point, I think Bronte is saying that the importance of someone is based on whether you can see them or not, but she won't admit it. Her evasion proves she doesn't want to say it out loud because she knows she sounds ridiculous. Michael owns Bronte. When Bronte says, I'm saying that someone that I can see and speak to standing in front of me cannot use my body against my will, and neither can someone that I cannot even distinguish without a microscope. They cannot use my body against my will. It again sounds like she's saying she doesn't like the way pregnancy works. Michael basically says that pregnancy does work that way and none of us can change that. When he says, it is simply a fact that your child can and does use your body, even if it is against your will. So of course that can happen because we're talking about the unique case of motherhood. Michael owns Bronte with facts. Bronte's response just reiterates that she doesn't like facts, and because she doesn't like it, that means we should change it. Bronte then switches tactics and goes the accusatory route because she cannot defend the I cannot see you, therefore you are unimportant argument because she knows it's insane. So she accuses Michael of sexism and says, you only think that we should remove bodily autonomy from people with uteruses.
Well, I don't know what you mean by bodily autonomy. We've already accepted at the beginning of our conversation that we don't have a total inalienable right to do whatever we want with our own bodies. So
It's interesting that you say that when you can't describe one scenario for me in which someone can use someone else's body legally.
Oh yeah, no, I'm telling you, that would be a unique fact of motherhood.
Right, and that is, when I say bodily autonomy, that is what I mean. I mean the use of your body and decisions about what happens to your body.
Oh,
and so,
well, no. Decisions about what happens to your body, that's different. Because of the drug laws and the laws against
decisions
suicide
when
and
it
all the
comes
rest
to
of it.
how your body is used. If your body is being used by another person.
Yeah, well, or how you use your own body, right? That would be the case of laws against suicide and drug use.
Sure.
So then it's not unique. But if we're talking about a baby growing inside you, yeah, of course that's unique to motherhood. That's the definition of pregnancy. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's unique. Yeah, I grant that.
Right, exactly. And so you cannot describe one scenario where someone can use someone else's
yeah,
body.
You're right. It's totally unique.
Exactly, and that's what I'm trying to describe is the only people in our society that you think don't deserve full bodily autonomy are people with uteruses.
No. Okay, but if by bodily autonomy you mean the only people who can have babies grow inside them are mothers, that is true. I agree with that. That's a fact of life.
Yeah.
That's true.
And those are the only people in our society that you are arguing should have their rights to their own body removed.
Well, I don't think they have rights to kill babies.
Right, because you don't think that they have rights to their own body.
I don't know what the hell leftists mean by bodily autonomy either. Bronte vaguely describes it as the use of your body and decisions about what happens to your body, or how your body is used if your body is being used by another person, or where someone can use someone else's body. So by that definition, does bodily autonomy mean pregnancy? Leftists are so confusing. When Bronte says the only people in our society that you think don't deserve full bodily autonomy are people with uteruses, she's accusing Michael of sexism because of a scientific fact she doesn't like. Michael never said that women have to be pregnant. He only stated the scientific fact that only women have the ability to become pregnant. So he's not sexist. Once again, Bronte, a woman, can choose whether or not she wants to get pregnant by choosing how she has sex. No sex or safe sex equals no pregnancy. Too much unsafe sex equals higher chance of pregnancy. Every woman has these choices. No one is taking those choices away. I don't understand why leftists don't get this concept.
Well, I don't think people have a total right to do whatever they want with their own bodies anyway, as we've already established.
Right, but you don't believe that they have the right to remove consent.
What do you mean to remove consent?
If they don't consent to their body being used, you don't believe that they have the right to remove that consent.
No, I think if you create a child, you don't have the right to kill him. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
You don't think that if your body is being used against your will, that you have the right to decide that you don't want that to happen?
Yeah, in the case of a little baby, no, I don't think you have the right. If you change your mind and you say, I don't like this baby anymore and I want to kill him, I don't think you have a right to kill him just because you no longer consent.
Right, even though your opinion does not coincide with the opinions of medical experts.
Yeah, well, it certainly coincides with the opinions of bioethical experts, and it's certainly with some medical experts, but yeah, I don't really care what some maniac obstetrician
Except for 95% of OBGYNs, who are the country and the world's leading experts on pregnant people, 95% of them would help their patient access abortion, regardless of their own personal feelings.
You just told me a number of them would commit murder even though they think it's murder, so I don't really trust
them. No, I'm telling you.
Remove consent? What is Bronte calling the baby consent? What is going on? Bronte says, right, even though your opinion does not coincide with the opinions of medical experts. I think Bronte feels like the medical experts' opinions are facts rather than opinions. I don't think she would hold them in such high esteem if she didn't. Once again, I say opinions are not facts. Facts are things like pregnancy happens to women, fetuses are human. Opinions about pregnancy and fetuses are just what people's thoughts are about pregnancy and fetuses. Michael says, well, you just told me a number of them would commit murder even though they think it's murder, so I don't really trust their opinions very much. I agree with Michael. I don't trust people who are willing to do immoral things, and I don't think they have any place in a medical health care system. You don't go to the doctor with a guarantee of death. You go to a killer if you want a guarantee of death. That's why there are so many true crime shows about nurses who kill, or surgeons who get a thrill out of having someone's life in their hands. It's because if you are in the healthcare industry, willingness to commit murder should not exist in your head. You are in the wrong profession if you have this willingness.
No, I'm telling you that people who spend their lives training to care for pregnant people and understand the complexities of pregnancy and the lives of pregnant people understand that regardless of their own feelings, that they cannot impede someone's access to medical care. And so I understand that you might not feel like that's appropriate, but for me, I would want my doctors who train their entire lives to be specialists in their field. I believe that we should abide by their expertise, and that someone who's not trained in the complexities of medicine, their opinion should not override somene's opinion.
Well, I think we're talking a little bit in circles now, and I don't think that the obstetricians necessarily have the greatest training in ethics or philosophy or morality or anything like that. But so I don't trust them on those issues, or I don't really trust the medical establishment on a whole host of issues because they tend to get things wrong so frequently, sometimes egregiously wrong. But regardless, I then have to ask, why has this become such a cause for you? You're a very prominent voice on this issue. What is it about abortion where you say, this is my issue? So
it was actually an accident. Essentially, I'm in medical school. I am a woman in medicine, and seeing the rights to our bodies be removed against the expertise of medical experts, that is a passionate issue for me because I am trained and passionate in defending the opinions of medical experts.
So it was medical school that started this?
Yeah, I've always been pro-choice my entire life. Ironically, I grew up in Texas and I grew up Republican, but I was always,
You grew up Republican?
I did, I grew up Republican.
What happened, Bronte?
What happened, I became educated, Michael.
Oh, did you? Oh,
I did,
we'll have to look into
I became educated and informed, and I realized that, my opinions on certain things were completely removed from the reality of the issue. And then the deeper and deeper that I got into my education, like I said, I got my master's, I'm almost done with my doctorate, and I realized that people who train their entire lives to analyze this issue are, putting up a very solid front. And there's 95% of them that agree that we should have access to this.
It is fascinating to me how skilled Bronte is at not answering questions. She says a lot of words, yet says nothing at the same time. Her answer of why she got so passionate about the topic of abortion is that she went to medical school. The rest of her explanation is her agreeing with what the medical experts told her. Bronte says, I am trained and passionate in defending the opinions of medical experts. That's what she says she's passionate about, defending the opinions of other people. Do you have any original thoughts, Bronte? Bronte's response shows how much colleges have been infiltrated by leftist political ideas. If Bronte grew up Republican, there are some Republicans who are pro-choice, as she says she was, but if she grew up Republican in Texas, it seems to me like she started believing an entirely opposite belief system that was taught to her in medical school. The fact that Bronte says, I became educated, Michael, just proves that college pushes people towards these ideas Bronte has and disguises those ideas as knowledge.
If the American Academy of Obstetricians, or whatever the group is, if they told you to walk off a bridge, would you do it?
That's not pertaining to my medical care.
Has Bronte never heard this question before? My mom said it as a way to teach me about peer pressure. I thought it was a common question everyone used to hear as a little kid. It's fascinating that she can't answer this as an adult. When my mom asked me that as a kid, I said, no, why would I jump off a bridge? Also, Michael owns Bronte because what he's saying is no one should be blindly followed, even if you trust most of what they say. And she is clueless to what he is asking.
Well, it would be, depending on how well you swim.
That's not pertaining to my medical care. That's not a medical condition. That is not a medical treatment. So it is an irrelevant question.
If they told you that the best treatment for cancer is to eat a lollipop jumping on a pogo stick, would you trust them?
If they showed me the science behind it, then sure.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a little bit different. That's a
Right,
little,
it has to be.
because then you're not just deferring to the experts. You're using your own faculties of reason.
I don't think Bronte has any faculties of reason since she is passionate about defending the opinions of medical experts.
Well, the experts use evidence-based medicine, and so if they are able to show me the evidence behind their opinion, which all medical experts should be able to do, then I trust them, which on this issue of abortion and abortion access, they're able to show multitudes of studies how
Of why it's okay to kill a human being.
No, why banning abortion access actually harms more people. So Colorado University actually did a study showing that abortion bans are likely going to increase maternal mortality by 24%, and that abortion bans do not minimize or decrease the amount of abortions that occur.
They don't?
No,
Really?
they do not.
Michael owns Bronte when he finishes her sentence of how she's been shown multitudes of studies of why it's okay to kill a human being. What I've heard from Bronte is that if a person is small enough, if that person's mother doesn't like the fact of how pregnancy works, if you cannot see that person inside that mother, then it is okay for that mother to kill the person growing inside of her. Bronte evades Michael with more statistics throwing, this time about maternal mortality. If throwing statistics at people was an Olympic sport, Bronte would get the gold medal.
So what happened to abortion after Roe v. Wade was decided?
What do you mean?
The number of abortions. We have the statistics.
Right.
What
Well,
happened?
because
Did it
it's
go up
going-
or down?
I mean, it depends because a lot of people, because abortions become illegal and they are difficult to quantify.
No, but Roe v. Wade made abortion legal nationally. What happened to the total number of
The
abortions?
total number of abortions that are accessed through proper medical channels decreased, not the amount of abortions that happen at people's homes and unsafely and illegally.
No, maybe you misheard. Roe v. Wade, 1973, legalizes abortion.
Mm-hmm.
So the total number of abortions that happened after abortion became legal, you just said that the number.
Sorry, I thought you were referring to the
referring
overturning
to
of
Dobbs. Yeah. So 1973, because you're just saying that abortion bans actually don't reduce the number of abortions.
Correct.
Legalizing it doesn't necessarily increase it. But what happened?
No,
after Roe?
it doesn't go the other way because people who desire an abortion and need an abortion are going to access it regardless if it's illegal or legal, safe or unsafe.
But it has to go the other way because the question is the regulation of the abortion. So it necessarily has to go.
It's going to, if you legalize abortion, it increases the safe and legal abortions. If you ban abortion, it's going to increase the amount of illegal and unsafe abortion. But it is.
What about the total number of abortions, though? That's what I'm asking about. The illegal ones and the legal ones and the bad ones you don't like and the good ones you do like. What happened after Roe v. Wade?
Well, the safe and legal ones, when Roe v. Wade in the 70s.
Talking about total abortions.
It stays relatively the same. It's going to increase in the statistics because we can quantify the amount of people who receive abortion access through medical care.
Bronte, if the number of total abortions stays relatively the same, then why do you care so much about whether abortion is legal or illegal? Is it because you would prefer there to be more abortions?
But we can also quantify the illegal ones too.
So why don't you tell me, Michael?
Well, the abortions went way up and they actually doubled. But even to your point on quantifying illegal abortions and legal abortions, we can quantify the illegal abortions. And there was this canard that went around that before Roe v. Wade, thousands of women died every year from illegal abortions. And you're referring to maternal mortality rates are being predicted by all the doom and gloom people do. They're going to skyrocket. You probably know this statistic. How many women actually died the year before Roe v. Wade was decided from illegal abortions in the United States?
I know that about 700 to 800 women die every year from pregnancy complications, and I know that unsafe abortions are in the top 4 leading causes of maternal mortality, but I don't know the amount of people who died prior to Roe v. Wade from illegal abortions.
39 in the year before Roe v. Wade was decided. 39 women died.
And
from
those
illegal
39 women, that's not a big enough number for you to care.
No.
Bronte either flat out lied that abortion stayed the same after Roe v. Wade, or we have finally found a statistic that Bronte doesn't know. Michael says after Roe v. Wade was passed, making abortion legal nationwide throughout the first trimester, the number of total abortions doubled. Logically, this makes sense because once something is legalized, people will feel more comfortable doing it. Michael owns Bronte with the fact that only 39 women died from illegal abortions in 1972, which proves the thousands of women died every year before Roe v. Wade's statement false. Bronte evades Michael by accusing him of not having compassion. This game is getting old, Bronte. Of course he's not saying the deaths of those 39 women were not sad and unfortunate. He's pro-life. He doesn't want anyone's life to end tragically. That is the whole point of pro-life. He's saying that 39 is a vastly different number from the thousands that the American public was told about.